You need smarts. The tough guys. A lot of the times, the tough guys, they're the weak ones. You know, I know a lot of tough guys, but they're stupid. We don't need tough, stupid people. Those are the worst, actually. The worst guys are the tough, stupid people and people. I'm tougher than all of them, believe me. But I'm good at war. I've had a lot of wars of my own. I'm really good at war. I love war in a certain way, but only when we win. I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me. People are thinking like I don't have a plan.
Yesterday, you actually told us a little bit about your plan in your speech. You said this, quote, "We're going to convene my top generals, and they will have 30 days to submit a plan for soundly and quickly defeating ISIS." So is the plan you've been hiding this whole time asking someone else for their plan?
No. But when I do come up with a plan that I like and that perhaps agrees with mine or maybe doesn't, I may love what the generals come back with.
You're going to convene a panel of generals, and you've already said you know more about ISIS than those generals.
Well, there'd probably be different generals, to be honest with you. I'm going to find a general who's so good. So good. Who's so mean and so smart.
But you have your own plan.
I have a plan. I don't want to broadcast to the enemy exactly what my plan is.
I want to be unpredictable. I'm not going to tell you right now what I'm going to do. First thing I do is I get everybody together, because we don't want to do this by ourselves, Sean. This is a problem. This is a worldwide problem. I'd get everybody together. That includes Russia, and I'd blast the hell out of them. They wouldn't be there long, believe me. I would blast the hell out of them.
ISIS is making a tremendous amount of money because they have certain oil caps, right? I would bomb the shit out of them. I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. It's true. I don't care. I don't care. I would just bomb those suckers. And that's right. I'd blow up the pipes. I'd blow up the I'd blow up every single inch. There would be nothing left. And you know what? You'll get Exxon to come in there in 2 months. You ever see these guys, how good they are, the great oil companies? They'll rebuild that sucker brand new. It'll be beautiful. And I'd ring it, and I'd take the oil.
So you would rule in the possibility of using nuclear weapons against ISIS?
Well, I'm never going to rule anything out.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to say, even if I felt it wasn't going, I wouldn't want to tell you that.
Right.
Because at a minimum, I want them to think maybe we would use it, okay? Right. You know, when I hear Obama get up and say the biggest threat to the world today is global warming, I say, is this guy kidding? The only global warming I'm worried about is nuclear global warming, because that's the single biggest threat. Look, nuclear should be off the table. But would there be a time when it could be used? Possibly.
Okay, the trouble is when you said that, the whole world heard. David Cameron in Britain heard it. The Japanese, where we bombed them in 45, heard it. They're hearing a guy running for president of the United States talking of maybe using nuclear weapons. Nobody wants to hear that about an American president.
Why are we making them? Why do we make them?
A foreign policy expert on the international level went to advise Donald Trump, and 3 times he asked about the use of nuclear weapons. 3 times he asked, at one point, if we have them, why can't we use them?
Even if he were to use nuclear weapons on ISIS, where does the country of ISIS exist?
Of course, there is no Islamic State right now, and that's important to keep in mind with this.
I'm talking about radical Islamic terrorism. I will solve it far better than anybody else running. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I like that movie, right? Do we like that? Remember? The bad. Boom, from the bathtub. Shoot first. The guy was doing too much talking up there, right? Shoot first, talk later. Right? Shoot first. You talk about it later.
What about civilian casualties? What about the fact that we're targeting them and people are very concerned about collateral damage?
I would do my best, absolute best. You have to take out their families. When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families. They care about their lives. Don't kid yourself. But they say they don't care about their lives. You have to take out their families.
General Michael Hayden, former CIA director, NSA director, and other experts have said that when you ask the U.S. military to carry out some of your campaign promises, specifically targeting terrorist families and also the use of interrogation methods more extreme than waterboarding, the military will refuse because they've been trained to turn down and refuse illegal orders. So what would you do as Commander-in-Chief if the U.S. military refused to carry out those orders?
They won't refuse. They're not going to refuse me, believe me.
And they said, what do you think of waterboarding? I said, it's absolutely fine.
You said to the New York Times, you said you worried about the proliferation of nuclear weapons the most. You also said, though, that you might support Japan and South Korea developing nuclear weapons of their own. Isn't that completely contradictory?
Not at all. Look, you have North Korea has nuclear weapons, and he doesn't have a carrier yet, but he's got nuclear weapons. He soon will have. At some point, we have to say, you know what? We're better off if Japan protects itself against this maniac in North Korea. We're better off, frankly, if South Korea is going to start to protect itself.
Saudi Arabia, nuclear weapons?
Saudi Arabia, absolutely.
You would be fine with them having nuclear weapons?
No, not nuclear weapons, but they have to protect themselves or they have to pay us. I hate proliferation. I hate nuclear more than any. My uncle was a professor at MIT, used to tell me about nuclear, used to tell me about the problem.
That's contradictory about Japan and South Korea.
At some point, how many countries have it?
But if you say to Japan, yes, it's fine, you get nuclear weapons, South Korea, you as well, and Saudi Arabia says we want them too.
Can I be honest with you? It's going to happen anyway. It's going to happen anyway. It's only a question of time.
So you're saying you don't want more nuclear weapons in the world, but you're okay with Japan and South Korea having
I don't want more nuclear weapons. I would rather see Japan having some form of defense and maybe even offense against North Korea, because we're not pulling the trigger.
It's been a U.S. policy, though, for decades to prevent Japan from getting nuclear weapons.
That might be a policy, but
South
maybe,
Korea as well.
Can I be honest with you? Maybe it's going to have to be time to change.
Do you worry that the odds of terrorist groups then getting access to nuclear arms is greatly enhanced unless we prevent South Korea and Japan from getting nuclear weapons?
Well, I worry about that anyway. And the best thing you can do is knock the hell out of ISIS really fast and really furious and get rid of it.
The idea is not to have a nuclear arms race in the northern Pacific, on the Korean Peninsula.
Are you ready?
You want to throw that all away.
So North Korea has nukes. Japan has a problem with that. I mean, they have a big problem with it. Maybe they would, in fact, be better off if they defend themselves from North Korea. Maybe we would be better off, including with nukes. Yes, including with nukes.
And South Korea with nukes.
South Korea is right next door, just so you understand.
The U.S. tells us to give up our nuclear program, is preparing a nuclear attack against us, and on the other hand would tell its allies to have nuclear weapons. Isn't this a double standard?
One of the papers called the other day, and they said, would you speak to the leader of North Korea? I said, absolutely. Why not? Why not? Who knows? There's a 10% or a 20% chance that I can talk him out of those damn nukes, because who the hell wants him to have nukes? And there's a chance. I'm only going to make a good deal for us, but there's a chance. I wouldn't go there. That I can tell you. If he came here, I'd accept him. But I wouldn't give him a state dinner like we do for China and all these other people that rip us off, or we give them these big state dinners. We give them state dinners like you've never seen.
What would you do to deal with that reclusive country?
I would get China to make that guy disappear in one form or another very quickly. And let me tell you, people say,
how do you make him disappear and assassinate him?
Let me just tell you, no, well, I've heard of worse things, frankly. I would force the Chinese to do it economically. Economically, Charlie. And guess what we owe? We owe them $1.7 trillion, okay? But we have a lot of power over China. Don't underestimate it.
So you were saying to Nora's question, you would leave it up to the Chinese?
No, I wouldn't leave it up to them. I'd say, you got to do it. You got to do it.
And if they said no, you would do what?
I'd be very tough with them on trade.
If they said no, what would you do?
I would very strongly stop them from ripping. I'm going to stop them anyway to a certain extent, but maybe I'd do it a little bit more forcefully. We give them state dinners like you've never seen. We shouldn't have dinners at all. We should be eating a hamburger on a conference table, and we should make better deals with China and others. And forget the state dinners. You forget the state dinners. Believe me, I understand steaks. It's my favorite food.
As a presidential candidate, Donald Trump has no government record to weigh, but one way to consider the type of president he might be is by examining his business career.
You've clearly had some big successes in the business world, but you've also had some big failures. And let's go straight.
No, I don't think I've had big failures. Donald Trump has always been very, very successful. And so when you say failures, I don't think I've had failures, but let's go ahead. Ask me about a couple.
Okay, Trump hotels and casinos.
So I had a relatively small piece of the company, and what happened is Philadelphia.
Wait a second, you were chairman of the board.
Excuse me.
You were chairman of the board.
I was chairman, but I didn't run the company. I had nothing to do with running the company. Management ran the company.
You were paid $2 million a year.
Excuse me. I didn't run the company. I'm just telling you.
So what were you paid $2 million a year for?
Excuse me. because of my genius, okay?
You filed for bankruptcy protection 3 times in 6 years.
Okay, let me explain it to you. Very simple.
He starts flirting with Atlantic City and he builds the plaza down there.
He did not have the financing for the Trump Plaza.
In the late 1980s, smart players were paying down debt and protecting their equity. Donald Trump went right on playing his game.
My new game is Trump, the game.
Trump, the game, where you deal for everything you've ever wanted to own. Because it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether you win.
He acquires the castle.
Now this is a castle.
Everything's just bigger, much bigger, and frankly more expensive. But it's something that, when it's done, if done right, is a wonderful investment.
Trump only saw the cash coming in. Early on, a casino analyst named Marvin Rothman saw it pouring out.
While cash flow numbers sound very impressive, it's very important to be able to cover your debt service, because cash flow doesn't mean anything if you can't cover debt.
Covering debt wasn't on Trump's mind. Having it all was. So Trump's debt grew larger as he relied on the magic of junk bonds instead of partners to finance his habit.
A junk bond is so lowly rated that there's a high probability that you're not going to get your money back.
He then went into an acquisition phase, which is really what the Taj is.
Huge amounts of money were invested in the building of the Taj. Hundreds of millions of dollars, but Trump felt that he could complete the property.
Trump was supposed to finance the completion of the Taj Mahal. He never had any intention of doing that until he owned the company outright. The contract bled the company dry.
He promised the Casino Control Commission. He's got all kinds of lines to the banks. Major banks, one major bank, they'd love to dump money in my lap. You know, he led them to believe this transaction was uniquely something he could finance. Obviously, that's not exactly the way it turned out. He winds up relying totally on junk bonds.
Oh yeah, I think we're going to do very well with it. I think it's going to be, over the long term, a great business decision.
Wrong. One step beyond your wildest imagination. A billion-dollar dream come true. Donald J. Trump's Taj Mahal, the 8th wonder of the world.
Wrong. By the end of 1990, which was less than a year after it opened, it was failing to generate the revenues that were necessary to fund the bonds that had built it. They just couldn't pay the debt. And as a result, that led to further bankruptcy proceedings and eventually to Trump's loss of the facility. I was very disturbed by the amount of debt that was being piled on these properties. The debt service was over $95 million a year. Those kind of numbers made it necessary for that casino to generate a win of over $1 million a day.
He owed $3.4 billion in debt, he and his companies, which he couldn't repay. Even more serious, $830 million of that debt he had personally guaranteed.
There were $675 million issued, and a lot of the bonds were owned by small individuals. So little guys who weren't wealthy actually had a stake in that property.
But what about the contractors? Did they get what they were owed?
Well, the contractors working on some of his projects that had to go through bankruptcy, like the Taj Mahal, no, they didn't.
Right.
Trump's explanation is they had already made a lot of money on him, and this was just kind of the way business is.
But he's free and clear now.
Oh, yes.
Free and clear.
Yeah, by a long shot.
So when you talk about his legacy in Atlantic City, unfortunately, it is very ugly. If you look at his bankruptcy filings, for example, you see page after page after page of small businesses in Atlantic City that were thrilled when he got here, that would have built a statue to him when he got here. But at the end, all wound up with debt that could never be paid.
And since then, he's become a wealthy man by selling the name that was based on failed projects.
Isn't that a failure?
Not really. I mean, look, it worked out very well for me. It was very successful.
I do understand it's all basically a game, but some people obviously can't play it well.
Now we know that Donald is one rich guy, so how come in every shot he wears the same shirt and tie? If your deals turn out lucky and you're smart as a fox, you could be like Donald and end up on a box. Big bucks will never seem the same when you play Trump the game.
You were against same-sex marriage, now you're for it. You defended President Obama's immigration policies, now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly last week, you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life. I have always fought for the same values and principles.
Do you think New York State should recognize gay marriage?
No.
No. Okay.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman.
I have not supported same-sex marriage. I have supported civil partnerships and contractual relationships.
I support marriage for lesbian and gay couples. I support it personally and as a matter of policy and law.
So you're saying your opinion on gay marriage changed, or you changed your mind?
I have to say, I think you are being very persistent, but you are playing with my words and playing with what is such an important issue.
I'm just trying to clarify so I can understand.
No, I don't think you are trying to clarify. I think you're trying to say that, I used to be opposed and now I'm in favor and I did it for political reasons, and that's just flat wrong. So let me just state what I feel like you are implying and repudiate it. I have a strong record. I have a great commitment to this issue, and I am proud of what I've done and the progress we're making.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify what I was saying. No, I was saying that you maybe really believed this all along, but, believed in gay marriage all along, but felt for political reasons America wasn't ready yet and you couldn't say it. That's what I was thinking.
No, that is not true.
It really is great how long you've supported gay marriage.
Yes. I could have supported it sooner.
Well, you did it pretty soon.
Yeah. Could have been sooner.
Fair point.
Just in July, New Hampshire, you told the crowd you, quote, take a backseat to no one when it comes to progressive values.
I take a backseat to no one when you look at my record and standing up and fighting for progressive values.
Last month in Ohio, you said you plead guilty to, quote, being kind of moderate and center. Do you change your political identity based on who you're talking to?
No, I think that, like most people that I know, I have a range of views, but they are rooted in my values and my experience.
I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive.
Going through the emails, there were over 60,000 in total sent and received. About half were work-related and went to the State Department, and about half were personal, that were not in any way related to my work.
When you speak to the public, you say, I turned over everything. That's, for the most part, a direct quote. When you talk to the public, you say, I turned over everything.
90 to 95% of my work-related emails were in the state system. If they wanted to see them, they would certainly have been able to do so. You know what? That
is maybe the 10th time you have cited that figure today.
It is.
And I have not heard anyone other than you ever cite that figure. Who told you that 90 to 95% of your emails were in the State Department system? Who told you that?
We learned that from the State Department in their analysis of the emails that were already on the system.
The Inspector General report found that less than 1% of State Department emails, record emails, were captured. So they give a number of less than 1%, and you give a number of 90%.
I have absolute confidence that everything that could be in any way connected to work is now in the possession of the State Department.
This pile represents the emails that you sent or received about Libya in 2011, from February through December of 2011. This pile represents the emails you sent or received from early 2012 until the day of the attack. There are 795 emails in this pile. We've counted them. There are 67 emails in this pile in 2012. And I'm troubled by what I see here. I can only conclude by your own records that there was a lack of interest in Libya in 2012.
The server contains personal communications from my husband and me.
Only time I got on the internet, I did 2 emails, and I ordered Christmas presents from a reservation. Otherwise, I found people said embarrassing things on emails. I didn't want to be one of them.
I mean, and how many angels dance on the head of a pin? I have really nothing to, I mean, how do you answer that?
I represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out. Quit foreclosing on homes. Quit engaging in these kinds of speculative behaviors.
Now, who's exactly to blame for the housing crisis? I think there's plenty of blame to go around. Home buyers who paid extra fees to avoid documenting their income should have known they were getting in over their heads.
Of course, we have to deal with the problem that the banks are still too big to fail. We can never let the American taxpayer and middle-class families ever have to bail out the kind of speculative behavior that we saw. But we also have to worry about some of the other players. AIG, a big insurance company, Lehman Brothers, an investment bank. There's this whole area called shadow banking. That's where the experts tell me the next potential problem could come from. So I'm with both Senator Sanders and Governor O'Malley in putting a lot of attention onto the banks. And the plan that I have put forward would actually empower regulators to break up big banks. I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
9/11 was bad.
I agree with that.
Time and time again, you hear one thing in speeches, and then you see a campaign that has the worst kind of tactics, reminiscent of the same sort of Republican attacks on Democrats. Well, I am here to say that it is not only wrong, but it is undermining core democratic principles. Since when do Democrats attack one another on universal health care?
I've looked at the legislation that Senator Sanders has proposed, and basically he does eliminate the Affordable Care Act, eliminates private insurance, eliminates Medicare, eliminates Medicaid, TRICARE, Children's Health Insurance Program.
Just because Senator Obama chose not to present a universal health care plan does not give him the right to attack me because I did. So let's have a real campaign. Enough with the speeches and the big rallies and then using tactics that are right out of Karl Rove's playbook. This is wrong, and every Democrat should be outraged. The Democratic Party in the United States worked since Harry Truman to get the Affordable Care Act passed. So shame on you, Barack Obama. It is time you ran a campaign consistent with your messages in public.
Hillary Clinton's attempt to tout her foreign policy experience hounded her again on the campaign trail today.
I made a mistake in describing it.
She claimed she misspoke last week and was sleep deprived when she described landing under sniper fire in Tuzla, Bosnia, something that didn't happen. But CBS News has found several times in the past few months when Senator Clinton used the Bosnia trip to try to show her international experience. December in Iowa.
We landed in one of those corkscrew landings and ran out because they said there might be sniper fire. I don't remember anybody offering me tea on the tarmac when that was happening.
Then in February.
The welcoming ceremony had to be moved inside because of sniper fire.
And last week.
I remember landing under sniper fire. We basically were told to run to our cars. Now that is what happened.
Some differing accounts of your trip to Bosnia, and I'm wondering if you can clarify. I know you recall, ducking under sniper fire, and Sinbad in his account, who's on the trip, he said that the most dangerous part was remembering where he was going to eat next.
He's a comedian, Jeff. He's a comedian.
So you actually recall, hearing gunfire, and were you
when we were flying into Bosnia, we came in a evasive maneuver. There was no greeting ceremony, and we basically were told to run to our cars. Now that is what happened.
After CBS News video showed what really happened when she landed and greeted officials, Senator Clinton maintained there were risks, but explained to the Philadelphia Daily News why she was seen on the Bosnian tarmac greeting a young child if it was really so dangerous.
I was also told that the greeting ceremony had been moved away from the tarmac, but that there was this 8-year-old girl, and I said, well, I can't rush by her. I've got to at least greet her. So I greeted her, I took her stuff, and I left. Now that's my memory of it.
Good to see you.
Once again, her memory doesn't match our videotape. She and her daughter Chelsea lingered on the tarmac to greet U.S. military officials. Took photos. There was the group of 7th graders on the tarmac too. And then Senator Clinton walked to the armored vehicle where she did eventually duck and enter.
It was one of the highlights of President Clinton's first term, passage of the North American Free Trade Agreement, also known as NAFTA. Critics blame NAFTA for the loss of manufacturing jobs in industrial states, including Ohio and Pennsylvania. Hillary Clinton helped get NAFTA approved. She held at least 5 meetings to strategize about how to win congressional approval. She helped the White House block opposition from labor and environmental groups, and she was the featured speaker at a crucial meeting. Participants in that event said, quote, her remarks were totally pro-NAFTA. There was no equivocation for her support for NAFTA at the time.
I have been a critic of NAFTA from the very beginning.
My concerns about NAFTA expressed years ago have been well documented and verified.
I didn't have a public position on it.
I have spoken consistently against NAFTA.
And if you look at what I have been saying, it has been consistent.
I have been consistent.
You can go back and look at from the very beginning.
I was one of the voices in the administration warning about NAFTA.
You said it was good on balance for New York and America in 2004, and now you're in Ohio, and your words are much different, Senator. The record is very clear.
Well, you don't have all the record, because you can go back and look at what I've said consistently.
Oh, I think that everybody is in favor of free and fair trade, and I think that NAFTA is proving its worth.
I think on balance, NAFTA has been good for New York and America.
Was NAFTA a mistake?
NAFTA was a mistake to the extent that it did not deliver on what we had hoped it would.
One of these 10 candidates will accept the Republican Party's nomination.
Oh, I thought this is where they taped Celebrity Family Feud. So, but I accept the nomination, and I thank you all very much.
Without further ado, let's begin. Gentlemen.
And lady. Don't forget the ladies.
First round of questions is on the subject of gay marriage and religious liberty. Governor Kasich.
Actually, I'll take this one. I am for it. Anyone else around me? Come on. The tides are a-changing. I mean, have you seen my wife? Who's with me? Jeb Bush. That reminds me of a song. Let's do a story about a man named Jed, poor mountain deer, barely kept his feeling fed. One day he was shooting at some food, and up in the ground came bubbling crude. Oil, that is.
All right, enough.
do you persuade enough independents and Democrats to get elected in 2016?
I would support both sides of the aisle, and the best support there is Ellen Underwear. Ellen Underwear.
Mr. Trump, I want to ask you about your business record.
I give to everybody. When they call, I give. And you know what? Most of the people on this stage I've given to.
Not me. Not me.
Definitely not me.
Let's see, laws under my presidency. The official animal of America will be the baby goat. And let's see, as of today, your horn, that's right, if you honk your horn the second after the light turns green, you lose your privilege to drive. Right? And from henceforth on, it shall be illegal to enter a Starbucks unless you already know your order. That's right. Yes. Furthermore, if I watch The Bachelor Tells All and The Bachelor does not tell all, in fact, he will be arrested because ain't nobody got time for that. All right. And finally, it's now against the law to sing Let It Go in public. If a person is caught doing so, their bank accounts will be frozen. Fair and funny. Okay. I'm good at this job.
And here's exactly what you want to hear. This election will be over very, very soon.
Let freedom reign. America be a great nation. This must become true. So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men